All right, guys, I am so excited about this. All right, we are talking with Sarah Yourgrau. Now, Sarah is a self-professed optimism activist. Don't you already love that? She is also an Emmy-Award winning producer dedicated to reimagining and rebuilding the ways that we connect with each other, both on and off the screen. She's the real deal. She's had some seriously fun adventures. She's worked for Adam Sandler's Happy Madison Productions. Heck, she was even Maya Rudolph's personal assistant for a while. My personal favorite is she's a producer for Mike Rowe and Returning the Favor. In fact, for years, Sarah has traveled extensively throughout the United States and internationally, creating documentaries, commercials, television series, and online content. And during that time, she has been studying resilience, optimism, hope, and community change making, which is dream think do fodder, right? And she's been right on the front line, spending time with and telling the stories of people who are making a difference and making the world a better place. Now, all of this has given her a truly unique perspective on the American identity, and I think on humans. And I'm excited to say it's also laid the groundwork for her own optimism generating media company called Now Tell Me Something Good. Her company is already doing amazing work by providing content that offers tools, insights, and best practices, not to mention telling great stories that are so needed right now. It's content that will inspire the world to start and sustain work that impacts the world in a positive way. Guys, she is pure awesome. You're going to love her. I am so stoked to do this. So Sarah, welcome to Dream Think Do.
Wow, Mitch, you got to follow me around and do all my introductions.
I'll do that. Absolutely. Let's, I'm a little busy next Tuesday, but after that, let's do that. That sounds great. I always say a good intro is my gift to my guests. So I love it. There's so much in there though, I've been wanting to dig into with you. Let's talk about being an optimism activist. I love this term. When I saw it, I'm like, yes, she is my people. We are a tribe. Let's do this. What is optimism activist? Being an optimism activist, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, so being an optimism activist, I realized after I've been spending so much time studying change makers and grassroots organizers and leaders and believers in possibility, that I realized that optimism is the critical first step to actually maintaining and sustaining this kind of work, right?
Yep.
If we do not have belief, we will never begin, and we will never commit to the amount of work it takes to make an impact and make a change in our personal lives or even on a greater collective.
Yep.
So it's really about reclaiming that narrative of optimism, right? That's been relegated to this sort of positive, toxic world that, it's just not relatable. It's not grounded
exactly
in the same way.
I so appreciate when I've watched your content. I so appreciate it. And that's what I would say is you have a grounded optimism, which is not, it's one of those that optimism that's just kind of that airy fairy and rainbows and butterflies. It's just not, it's not tactical enough. It's not tangible enough. And so I think people dismiss it. That's not what we're talking about here.
Not at all. Not at all. And it's truly, for a really long time, I actually didn't know where to come into the positive space because I felt I was so hard for me to relate to. And it felt like it was so airy and so sort of like, just think better. And, but it's not tangible and it's not accessible. And for me, someone who lives in a production world, who needs things boom, 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 who is pragmatic, entrepreneurs, right? We have we want to something that we can clutch on to and work towards. And optimism is a practice. It is an accessible practice, but it takes work. And when you make optimism a habit, when you make it a practice, joy then becomes this wonderful habit. And that's where you have this line between optimism and positivity, right? Because optimism is the muscle to get there and positivity can be the outcome.
Yep. The kind of the fruit of it, right?
Totally.
Absolutely. Now I want to get to some producer question because I know you've got some fun stories on that side too, but we're going to stay with this. Then later on, we're going to talk about tools for optimism. But one of my questions is always, have you always been optimistic, or is this something you've had to learn, or would you say it's a little bit of both?
Ooh, it's a little bit of both for sure.
Yeah.
I would say, I would only say yes, that I've always been optimistic in the sense that I've always had optimism tools around me. My mom's a therapist.
Okay.
And
awesome.
so from a very young age, we were sort of taught this critical thinking and problem solving and reframing and all those things. But I was by no means a happy-go-lucky, rainbows out my butt kind of kid. I mean, I was a regular human being who has the challenges and the struggles and feels deeply overwhelmed. And so I feel particularly confident about this type of optimism because it's tried and true and well earned. And I know that when you practice it, it actually reaps that reward. Like, I work at this stuff every single day, right? It's like, so that's not something that I came into the world just. I think that's also a fallacy that I realize more and more, that people sometimes think they feel disempowered by saying, oh, well, I'm not a positive person, or I'm just like this. Right.
And this is what I am. This is what I do. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. And these other sort of disempowering frameworks and mindsets that we operate in. And really optimism is accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
It is a practice. It is a habit, skill set, and it takes work. And that part of that work is so gratifying, right? That's like that character building work.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think that some people might be more naturally prone to worry. I know I am a recovering worrier. At the same time, I think some people might be more naturally prone to optimism.
For sure.
But no matter where you're at on the spectrum, it is still a daily choice. Right. We have to choose it, because it's, especially in, COVID wildness, right? It's probably easier to lean towards stress, anxiety. I mean, that's definitely what the world would say right now. So we have to choose this. But I think, especially given the profession that you're in as a professional producer, I mean, talk about an industry and a world that would be easy to be freaked out, anxious, walking on eggshells all the time. So let's talk about that world just a little bit, so people can understand that you're not just kind of getting to, run around in meadows and a life of ease. Let's talk about being a producer. So I mentioned, a few of the things. When you talk about being a producer, how do you define like the work that you do?
I am a professional problem solver.
There you go.
So I literally, my job is to be some days I'm a magician, a therapist. I am, the mayor. I am
exactly fundraiser, medic. I bet. Yes.
All of that. Deeply fundraiser, deeply medic, all of that. And the hype person, the strategist, all of that. You're just a really nimble problem solver, and your job is to walk through chaos and organize it in some capacity, right? And to be really steady. And it's given me, this optimism is the reason why I've been able to have such a joyful experience with production, because production is chaos by definition, right?
Yep.
You can have wonderful plans, just like in life. You can have terrific, well-laid plans.
That's right.
And they're all going to go astray. And
absolutely.
you have to be totally. And the resilience that you have to adopt is your ability to kind of walk through that and find the new opportunity that reveals itself, to react quickly to that, to have trust that you're able to do that. But I actually purposefully, by design, try and spend so much of my life in really shadowy parts of our experience. And by that, I mean some of the really challenged parts of the United States specifically, right?
Yeah.
Like I work with so many nonprofits, and I'm really, and grassroots organizers and leaders in those spaces who have no reason to be so happy and resilient. They're dealing with real challenges, and it gives me such grounded perspective, because it's very easy to be optimistic and positive when things are going great. That's easy.
Right.
The real usage of it is when you can have that be this sort of backbone for you that weathers the storms, right? So it's just building that oak in you, so you're steadier.
Absolutely is. Yeah. And it's that whole thing. I mean, life is going to give you Navy SEAL training. It's just, how are you going to look at it? Right. Like, and then what are you going to do with it? And it's funny because we've had some different production opportunities, had some, web-based series, things like that. And it's funny because you do look at TV shows, you look at content differently after having a little bit of that experience. Nothing like yours, but it's like, it's still, and it's interesting when you watch shows, you can go, I know what the production team is like. If the show is cynical, you're like, those producers are cynical, right? And I would wager there's a lot more cynical producers than there probably are positive producers. There's a lot of great producers out there, but that industry lends itself to anxiety, worry, stress. So, but you do look at these shows like Returning the Favor, and you're like, well, it's no surprise Sarah's there, because that show just exudes that type of optimism, right? So of course it's going to attract that kind of team, and that team's kind of going to produce more of that. And you've been able to sustain that. Let's talk about that. I know a lot of Dream Think doers are big fans of the show, big fans of Mike Rowe. How did you get involved with that? And I want to specifically talk about your first episode, which we will embed in the show notes. It is so good. And it's so fun because really you meet Mike in the show. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So a couple years before, or maybe 2 years before I joined the show back in 2017, it was like September 2017, I had made a declaration to say, I'm only going to be working on, I realized early on that I had a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm to give the world. And that could either be yielded towards powerful creation or some more destruction, right?
It's like a superpower. It's either powers for good or powers for evil. Sarah's got a lot of power here. Yes.
Totally. And I also was like, if I'm going to lend this energy and I'm going to feel that self-value around it, I need it to be propelled towards uplifting and empowering content, because, you know, the way we tell stories, it validates our humanity within each other, right? If we validate each other's stories, we validate each other's humanity. And I believe that fully. So I had a friend of mine we had sort of been accountability buddies in this, and he gave me a call while I was shooting a film actually in Portugal. Oh, wow. And he gave me a call and he said, they're hiring for this new show that I think you would be absolutely perfect for. You need to come home tomorrow. And I had just wrapped the show. My husband was there. We were planning on having this like great little vacation over there. And something in my heart was like, this is my show. This is a show that is. I'm
sorry, Yogi.
Mine. Yeah, exactly. I know. He recovered. We got him to the
right. I love it.
But I came into the show and I realized, it feels, you know, when you tap into a project, and I'm sure, you know, the Dream Think doers know what this feels like when you tap into a project and it is just euphoric. It is the currency itself, right? It fuels you and you feel like this is what life is made of, and you could go for hours and hours. That is what Returning the Favor felt like. It combined all these facets of the human experience that I just loved, you know, from the pranking, surprising, to the celebrating and uplifting, you know? So we started on the show, and I had my first episode that was in Twin Falls, Idaho, with an incredible family, the Mickelson family, who started an organization called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And I went over there. They're incredible. Their tagline is "No kid sleeps on the floor in our town," and they just deliver beds to this epidemic of kids who are, you know, homeless or sleeping on the floor, whatever it might be. And we went out there, we celebrated. It's just like the most incredible gift in the world to get to be part of this huge celebration. And Mike gets off the plane. I pick him up from the airport. I've never met this man, and it's Mike Rowe.
It's Mike Rowe. Like this is happening right now. And you've been working hard. Like if you guys haven't watched Returning the Favor, you need to. But you go into the town under some guise of shooting a documentary or whatever. They don't know Mike Rowe's coming. They don't know good stuff's coming. You're just kind of getting the story ready. And you're also doing all of this work to get the community on board, to give them all sorts of good stuff and support and all that kind of stuff. So it's absolutely beautiful. But I know you got to be hauling tail as a producer because you're working in these like real world and then the make-believe world of, hey, no, it's a documentary for something else and da-da-da-da. So like, it's amazing. You got to be juggling so many extra balls with this kind of algorithm. But Mike comes in after you've done all this work, which is great. It's kind of, you know, but you now are kind of, all of this comes together in a minivan, basically.
In a minivan. And this is back when we had another person driving. Now I drive the car and he sits passenger, but I was behind him. So we were having to facilitate this sort of conversation where he'd be looking back at me. And yes, exactly. I've been operating under an alias. I had a whole fake production company I'm from, and now I meet him and I have to merge those two worlds. And suddenly I become, you know, the narrator of the experience for him and the audience, right? Explaining what's going on to him. And mind you, I have no idea what I'm really supposed to be doing here. Okay. Okay. I got no prep. I got,
yeah.
and
Hey, Sarah, if you're going to kind of be the voice of the audience, what we need you to do is this. You're just like, hey, it's me. It's Sarah. Yeah.
Exactly. And I learned later that the other executive producers were like, let's just see how this goes. Let's see if they can, let's see what
make Sarah do it. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Yes. And, we instantly like amused each other. Mike and I, now we become such great friends, and he's like, my mentor and my good buddy in this life. But we really, he's an improviser. I'm an improviser. He really shows up authentically. I show up authentically. Which is work to show up authentically.
Exactly.
Right?
Especially when you're also juggling all these other balls. It's one thing to be off camera. It's another thing entirely to be on camera too. Yeah.
I know. Imagine if cameras followed you around every aspect of your work.
No, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Way too much of an introvert for that. Yes, exactly. But it's amazing how this, like, you guys meet, and I've heard about it in some of my research that was really you guys meeting for the first time. I mean, obviously it's amazing to hear that, but you guys it was almost like brother and sister banter immediately, which is like, okay, something extra special is happening right here on camera. It's amazing. So, and then that episode, again, we'll put it with the show notes. That episode is so extra special because obviously you bonded with that family. You had done so much work to get things done. You were able to give such a great gift to the family. It's just incredible. It's got to be fun to be a part of. A lot of work, but fun.
It's amazing. It is a labor of love.
Yes.
And it is profoundly gratifying. I mean, I show up just like drenched in rain, exhausted from not sleeping. You really go into, your teams that you work with in the field. Like, it's a team sport, I always say, production, because it really feels like at times like elements of, military or professional sports teams or whatever, because you really rely on each other and trust each other. And just everyone has such pure hearts and such beautiful integrity. I mean, if you're not really in a heart space that you're going above and beyond, whether the cameras are rolling or not, you have an opportunity to help be a part of a story that helps to change someone's life. Yeah. Like, that is the greatest drug in the world.
Exactly right. You can get addicted to that. That's just fine. Do that. Yes. I love it. I love it. We could talk stories about that forever, but I want to shift back and talk about this grounded optimism, because I do think that you do have some superpowers, but these are superpowers you're willing to share with everybody. And I think there are certain tools that you use that help you to do that even more. And I want to give some of those tools to Dream Think Doers, because like we talked about, these tools are important at any time. But in this season, especially like COVID, when it first hit, looked like a sprint. We know now that it's an ultra triathlon, not even an ultra marathon. It's an ultra triathlon. We're not sure how long this thing's going to go. And there's different iterations, all of that. So we're having to choose optimism more now than ever. So let's give Dream Think Doers some specific tools and tips when it comes to that grounded optimism, the optimism that actually allows you to get things done and actually experience more joy as you do it. What are some of those things? What's some of Sarah's toolbox when it comes to optimism?
Absolutely. And I love that you said it is a choice, because it is a choice. It can be a very hard choice, but so is standing still, and so is staying in the inertia of life and letting the waves pound you. Learn how to ride them,
Yep. Absolutely.
So I'd say the first thing that I would recommend everyone do, and I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, get a meditation practice going. Yep. Whether that means you are in stillness for 2 minutes and you're going through, you have to ground back into the present. We live in our heads, and if we are not living in the now and we're living in the future and in the past, we're always going to be tug of war through everything, and you're going to miss the beautiful simplicity that allows you to recognize, I have more control than I think. Yes. Things are actually okay. Yep. And I can, now I can solve to the next step. And that sounds corny, but it sounds corny because it's the truth. It's
wildly true. And I think it also I think it's such an important topic, because I think sometimes when people hear meditation, they're like, well, do I have to go to the mountains of Nepal?
No.
Do I have to find this perfect setting? Do I have to, find this beautiful, meadow and wait till the birdie lands on my finger? And it's not that. I'm with you on that, but let's talk some mechanics of that for you. If you really do want to take some time to meditate. I'm sure it looks different ways, but let's just say we're going to try to set up our best day. Like,
Mhm.
you know, the best kind of day for you. What does that look like?
So it is one of my non-negotiables of my day, regardless if I have a 5 a.m. call time for production, or, you know, if I set my alarm for at least 30 minutes before I have to get up every single day. Not because I want to. I want to do it like I want a hole in my head. I
Right.
want to do it like that is the power of it, right? Arriving to
Yep.
there. And also realizing that it's just about sitting, and you find yourself, I find myself some sort of mantra. So every morning, my routine is I wake up and I do 22 minutes, but
Huh.
that is not what you have to do.
Yeah.
I do 22 minutes because that is perhaps the only time that I own for the rest of the day. And I want to keep myself clean and
Yep.
nimble and,
Yep.
and charge my battery right at the front of the day.
Yep.
And some days I go there more willingly than others, but it's the act of going there and just
Yep.
keeping a habit, right?
Yep.
Keeping a habit regardless if I feel like it. And you do not have to be in silence. You do not have to be in darkness. You do not have to be, things can be happening around you. It's really about remembering that you always have that safety net to return to inside of you. It's like,
Yeah.
that's what optimism is, building this sort of impenetrable castle that you can keep returning to, right? You're
Yep.
you're not letting things penetrate so quickly. So
Yep.
really get yourself a meditation practice in some capacity, and then end it, however long you do it, end it with some sort of rapid fire gratitude, because gratitude is the second thing
Yep.
that I would recommend for everybody. And these are practices that you will, everything that I'm going to share are practices that people have heard of in some capacity, right?
Sure.
But these are the daily, real, you know,
Yep.
scientifically yielding evidence-based stuff. And
Yep.
when we can ground ourselves back to the present, ground ourselves back to the gratitude can be as simple as the sun is shining and it feels warm on my body, and I'm able to go outside and be in the, you know, those silly things that ground us back to what really matters, you
Yep.
know, and what we have
Yep.
control over. So going through a gratitude exercise, and you can
Let's
realize,
talk about that. Let's talk about it.
yeah,
Like, I'm sorry, I always geek out and say, all right, let's go deeper.
love,
I love
I
the
love.
rapid fire gratitude. I so agree. And it's, again, it's one of those things that I think sometimes people think, oh, this has got to be where I'm bawling and weeping and it's like, no, it can actually be pretty quick. But let's talk about, how do you do that? Is that a couple of minutes? Are you thinking of specific things? Are those the same things every day? Are they different? How does that look for you?
Yeah, great. Well, so if we're operating, so I do it at the end of my meditation usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you do not have to. That can live at any point in your day, sitting in your
Yep.
car, right before you start the engine, before, you know, when you turn off the car, before you
Yep.
go into the place you're going into, and ground you back into the abundance of your life, right? And that's another trigger word, abundance.
Yeah.
But the abundance of your life, it's a mindset.
Yep.
And it's saying, okay, I had food in my refrigerator this morning. Check. I have love in my life. I have, like, mine are usually, I have a partnership that I love and I'm proud of, and I've built, you know, and I have incredible love in my life. I have parents who are healthy. I have food in my fridge. I have options in my life. I have a roof over my head. I have a door that closes and that I can
Yeah.
lock. Right.
Yeah.
I have the feeling of safety and security in my life in some way. I have the knowledge of, I have access to the internet. I can figure things out, you know, those little things that are really the huge things, because it's really just breaking down these limiting beliefs that you put into your head of saying that it's not possible. It's reminding yourself how much abundance you have in your life and how much there is to be grateful for, grounds you back down in what's actually important and what's worth your energy. Right? What's worth the energy.
And it's like you're saying, it does create that foundation that you can build on. So we've all got challenges. We've all got, you know, situations we're dealing with, all of that. But if we can start from that place of reminding ourselves of, hey, it doesn't have to be perfect, but yes, you've got love. Or like you said, I woke up and I actually had the choice of 3 different things I could have for breakfast. That's amazing. Most people in the world can't even do that, you know? And so absolutely, I love tapping into that. So I love the simplicity of it. And it is so, so important. I like that too, at the end of the meditation practice, just having that be the way you wrap things up. So I love it.
Just slip right into it. And it just sets the whole tone for the way that you're then going to greet everything else that comes your way. All the unpredictable things that are going to slip inside, it's going to remind you. It just keeps you steadier and anchored in it a little bit more.
I love it. I love it. All right. So let's talk about some other tools, especially as a producer, because as you said, you never know on any given day what curveballs are going to be thrown, other than curveballs are going to be thrown. That's probably your only thing that you know for sure. So what are some of those tools that you find, especially when it comes to dealing with surprises, changes, the curveballs?
Beautiful. So a thing that I love and an exercise I probably do 5 times a week
Wow.
is if I have the energy to expend towards dwelling to my worst case scenarios, right? You get something, slips
Yep.
you, I can live in that worst case scenario. That's what we're going to go to instantly, right? It's
Yep.
juicy and delicious and tempting and available. And it's this weird pseudo, comfort blanket that actually
Right.
doesn't go.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
um,
Satisfying for about 5 seconds and then,
totally.
yeah, deep, dark depths. Yes.
Totally. And it's fine. Go there. You're a creative
Yep.
mind. Go there, live in that. But if you're going to go there, then you have to counter it with a best case scenario. And
Mm.
you have to get your body to the same way you went through all the experience of the worst case scenario. You then couple it with right afterwards, the best case scenario.
Yep.
And let yourself live in the best case scenario. Feel that best case scenario. Feel the wins, feel the possibility, feel the potential in that. And then pull back and make a choice in which imaginary world you want to live in.
Yeah, it's
Because
true.
they're
Because
both
if we're
that creative.
imagining good, bad, or otherwise, it is an imaginary world. So where are you going to spend
Totally.
time? I
Totally.
love that. I love that. And I know from doing a little bit of research, I know there were productions that, like, it sounds like in your history that you didn't gel with. And I'm guessing probably would have been very easy to say, this is all I'll ever see. This is the best I'll expect. And I'm guessing this is the kind of thing that got you to what you're doing now.
Majorly. I mean, it's tangibly, this is not la-di-da-di air stuff. It
Right.
can feel like, oh, well, that's too sugar-coaty and nice. No, this is hard and true
Yep.
practices that really we cannot move unless we believe that it is possible. We cannot
Right.
keep moving forward towards something unless we cultivate that belief,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that belief in a possibility and in a better situation. And it's really about finding and grooming that agency in
Yeah.
yourself. That's where the optimism activism comes in. The agency to remember that it's great to outsource things to your friends and to soundboard off stuff, but you've got to be trusting with you first and believe
Yep.
that you have the power to get there and make those moves and make that impact and be a part of constructing that future that you want to
Right.
build.
Ugh.
And I'd rather live in a future that's much more abundant with possibility, that feels better, that's more resilient, that has stress hardiness, right? It's
Right.
like there's so much stress in the world, and I want to be able to kind of just bounce it off, and
That's
I want to move through it faster, right? Because it's
Yep.
not about avoiding stress or avoiding feeling sad or avoiding feeling anger. Feeling sad and feeling angry are amazing insight tools. They're critical insight tools to a
Right.
lot of things in our lives, but I don't want to dwell there.
Right.
That's disempowering.
Right. Yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
take those
Feel
things
it and then
totally,
choose to move on. That's
totally,
so
and
good.
apply the lesson.
Yep.
Apply the lesson. So it's not in vain. Otherwise, you're having all these just disempowering experiences in vain that just
Yeah.
end there.
Ugh.
And so definitely with production, I mean, my teams, one of the biggest things that I built in my teams, because production is a world that has a lot of stress and a lot of intensity, as I'm sure you experienced
Yeah.
during some of your times on production sets. And my sets I care just as much about the energy of the sets and the feeling of people feeling like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, and that their individual impact is helping the collective impact.
Yep.
These are critical human tools that we need to work towards
Absolutely.
something beyond ourselves,
And it's
so
that ripple effect. Like, I'm sure that if
totally.
you bring that onto a set, then there's a ripple effect to that, and it does impact everybody. And that set is just the metaphor for everybody's workplace, everybody's home, all of that. So I love
Totally.
it. Oh, I'm so glad this episode is going to be 4 hours long. Now we have to wrap it up. I don't want to, but I do want to go after one last tool. And I'll let you think about this a little bit, because especially when it comes to optimism, and like we talked about with COVID, I think everybody's realizing that the finish line is not in sight. We know there's going to be a finish line. We don't know what normal is going to look like someday, but we know things will get better. We're just not sure when that's going to be, when people are going to be safe, when we don't have to wear masks again, all those kinds of things, right? But I think it's that whole thing of how do we use optimism as part of our resilience, right? So I want to ask you, like, what's one of those things that you've tapped into? I'm going to give people a little bit of a little review of who we've been talking about. So I'll give you a second to think about it. But optimism and resiliency, think amongst yourselves. All right, guys, we've been talking with Sarah Yourgrau. She is pure awesome, isn't she? Optimism Activist. We will put all of her information in the show notes. You need to be following her. She's doing great things, especially you got to check out Now Tell Me Something Good. She's building it on Instagram and a number of different places. Again, we'll put all of her contact there, or contact information there. You're going to want to follow her. She's going to be somebody that's going to change the world. She already is. So we're excited and honored to get to do this. So, all right, Sarah, how about it? Resiliency and optimism. What do you think? What's one last tool we can offer Dream Think doers as we're wrapping up?
You know, it's really stepping back into your life and understanding that you have two huge surges of energy coming through you at all times. You have fear and you have hope, right? And you can either fan fear or fan hope. And it's about taking back your power. You are writing the script of your life. And it's never about what's happening in our life. It's about the perspective that we take within it. And if you reclaim that, then it almost doesn't matter what's happening around you, because you have written a script that you are going to succeed in your own definition of that. You are going to be able to be all right tomorrow. Like you can find, you can build that. But it's about taking back your power. I think ultimately that's the highest form of resilience, remembering that you are the one writing your script. Create more empowering narratives for you. If something's not working, rewrite that for yourself, right? COVID is going to make us all feel, if we dwell on the challenges of COVID far too long, we're never going to make forward movement. So what are we going to be able to do with what we have, and then write empowering scripts for that?
So good. So good. All right, Sarah, you are the bomb. Dream Think doers. Isn't she amazing? So thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on, for sharing your wisdom, for being so generous, and for doing the work that you're doing. We will definitely be watching that and following it and rooting for you as we do.
Thank you so much, Mitch. I appreciate it.